Hi, I moved, and the first thing I need to do is set up my computer. I need a place to work from. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but in my last space, my computer was kind of a server rack. I chose to sell the rack and keep all the components. I think that was just easier for me to move. I moved countries, so it would have been really difficult for me to ship a giant server rack. Now, the first project in this new space is to build myself a PC case. I'm prioritizing functionality and flexibility because whenever I get into a new space, I like to start small. Right now, my needs are simple. I want something flexible that I can modify and change without having to disassemble the whole thing. That being said, I also want something that prioritizes airflow. This is not really a water-cooled PC, and in the past, I've had cases that would choke my components because they don't get the air they need to cool them down. Last is I want something compact. I want something that I can hold on to and move from one place to another. I don't want something large because even if it's not as heavy, it can be hard to manage. That's the project right here. That's the legs that I'm talking about. And I want to fit the case into that volume. Now, the big question, what am I actually going to make the case out of? I found myself caring the most about the actual experience of it, mounting things to it, attaching things to it, the flexibility and modularity of it. I wanted to just put things on, take things off, try new things with it. That made me want to try out something I haven't really worked with, aluminum extrusion. The good thing about these aluminum extrusions is that you're able to have flexibility on the, like I said, the length of where this is being attached. I also got a bunch of these chunky ones. These are 20 by 80. These are perfect for the hard drives, but there's also a lot of standard components that you can play around with. So this is one of my favorite ones. I think this is called, I think, a T-nut or a T-locking nut. This is what it looks like. It has a thread here. It's a standard M3 nut. The way you attach it is aluminum extrusions have these gaps. So this just slots in vertically, and then the more you screw it in, the more it rotates and then locks. And then it's very, very solid. It's not going anywhere. Another very, very cool standard component that really helped me throughout this build are these aluminum brackets. So these are die cast aluminum. They are very light, but they're very, very strong. They're completely solid. They have this notch here that fits into this channel. And you just use to attach the right angles. To be completely honest, apart from those, I didn't really spend that much money on the build. So I got these extrusions, I got these nuts, and that's pretty much it. I had everything else. So apart from the extrusions and all the standard components, it covers a good deal, but it doesn't really cover everything I need for the build. Since I'm dealing with custom build, I'm gonna rely heavily on custom designed components. They're gonna be used to attach different components of the PC, like the GPU, the power supply, like the hard drives, in non-conventional spaces. To be completely honest with you, every case has this. A lot of cases are built the same way, but a lot of other cases are not. I'm gonna be relying on my own design skills and my own 3D printing skills to fill in the gaps that aluminum extrusions and whatever mounting options are on these standard components can't do for themselves. Since I knew that I would design custom mounts anyway, I wasn't too worried about everything being structurally sound. I just wanted to make sure everything fit in its place, and then I could reinforce it later with some custom made brackets if I needed to. The main components I'll need to fit in the case are the motherboard, the graphics card, and the power supply. I also want to fit 3 of these hard disk drives on. I already made mounts for them. Eventually, in the future, I want to add something like this, the Raspberry Pi, KVM, mounts for my headphones and things like that. I'm going to be using a tape measure, and I'm going to be using a caliper. I'm going to be starting with the component that has the most attachment points or holes, and that's the motherboard. It's the core component that everything else connects to. My idea is that if I focus on that as the base and then build around it, I'll have the best chance of making the best possible case. So now that I had a clear idea of where everything was going to go and where all the components needed to be, I got started with cutting out all of the aluminum extrusions. The good thing about the aluminum extrusion is that you can just use the standard blades that you use for wood. To be completely honest, the chop saw I have absolutely sucks. It sucks. It's the worst thing. It's the cheapest thing ever. It got the job done, and that's really all I cared about. Since I was cutting aluminum, the chips are unfortunately conductive. What that means is if they get on a motherboard or any of the components, they can cause a short, and we do not want a short. That might be the worst possible thing because that might fry everything beyond repair. What I needed to do was, number one, cut everything out and then make sure all of these aluminum shavings are out of the way and not in contact with anything that's electronic. And number two, I had to 3D print washers so that I can create some distance between anything that is conductive, like aluminum, and anything that is a motherboard that can short everything out. So I got started with 3D printing these washers while I was cutting everything to length. I started kind of attaching it from the bottom up, starting with the motherboard and then working around the motherboard. You know, I cut the footprint first, I attached everything and I assembled everything, and then afterwards, everything rose up. I started cutting the legs, and I realized it would be really cool if I designed external brackets for two reasons. One, I wanted to protect all the surfaces that this computer is going to be in touch with from sharp aluminum edges. Number two, it looks so cool. It looks so cool. It looks really, really cool. As you can see, there were a few casualties here and there. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get everything. So motherboard, and then I connected the GPU, and then I designed the GPU bracket, and then I decided, you know what, we need the power supply. We're gonna put it upside down, and I designed the brackets for those. And then finally, I put the hard drive. So I wanted to make sure that the motherboard, specifically this CPU, had a lot of room in between so that a lot of air can go in. I also wanted to make sure that this PSU had a lot of room in this direction, because there's a lot of cables that are going to come out from it. And so we need a lot of clearance. I also wanted to make sure there was space in this direction for this fan here. You can't see it, but there's a big fan over here that cools all the electronics inside the power supply. And finally, I wanted to make sure that this GPU was stable. This graphics card is connected to the motherboard using a very flimsy connector that not at all provides full support to something this beefy. I need to use these attachment points to connect it to a frame, to something structural. What I ended up doing is I used the major dimensions of one of the biggest components, the motherboard, to pretty much decide for me how much of these I'm gonna cut. All right, so the PC works, the mouse works, I have everything going on, I have everything working. The GPU clearly works because that's what this screen is attached to. This screen, by the way, is a hand-me-down from my brother, so thank him for that. I have all my data, which means that the hard drives were connected correctly, the GPU is connected correctly, there's obviously power, the peripherals are working, and also all the RAM cards. I got these years ago, so I mean, talk about an investment. This might be the best investment I've ever had, but I'm not going to sell them. So What could I have done better? Well, I learned that I love aluminum extrusion. It made this build incredibly fun. I will say, however, I feel as though I could have done a better job with the accuracy and precision of the cuts. I don't know if you took note, but a lot of the 3D printed corner brackets that I used kind of have protruding edges. The reason for that is because there are very sharp, very inaccurate cuts that are not entirely at 90 degrees. I'm not really happy with the way the cuts came out. I kind of decided, let me just get the PC done so that I can work on bigger, better projects, because like I said, there's a client project here and there's a few more projects in the pipeline that I need to get going. So I needed something done fast. The fact that this was an underpowered, very dull saw made this a very dangerous set of cutting procedures. I don't know if you could notice, but that's how I felt. Like I said, compact enough that I can pick it up with one hand. I have no issues. So the goal was to have it fit in this volume. Ooh, I think it does. Yes. All right. There we go. Thank you so much for watching. If you've made it this far, and if you do like this type of content, then please consider subscribing. Please consider following us on Instagram. We have an Instagram account, Meshmart. If you like this type of stuff, then there's a button for that. More importantly, if there is something that you saw me do, or if there's something that you saw on screen that I did not mention, or that you wanted me to talk more about, comment. Leave it in the comments. In the last video, I was very, very happy to hear about all these different people that enjoyed the fact that I was recycling things. A lot of this stuff is either upcycled or hand-me-downs or recycled too. And it's nice to know that there's people out there that share the same interests as me. It's always a treat to get to talk about this stuff. Feel free to just ask any questions you want about this stuff. Yeah, stay tuned for the next video. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one. Bye. So it fits with, actually with room to spare. Yeah, I'm gonna work on this cable management later.